Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. If you're just hopping on, we're just doing some quick introductions in the chat box to see who is in the room today. We have quite a few folks signed up, so we're just going to give it a minute or two here at the beginning before we kick things off.
As people are strolling on in, like Ashley mentioned, it's a great time to introduce yourself, who you're associated with, but also don't forget to press that all panelists and attendees button. That way everybody gets to see where everybody's coming from. Maybe connections or new connections can be made, but if you have the ability to change it from all panelists to all panelists and attendees, that's going to be super helpful. Thanks.
Great, so I think we'll get a slow start on here as everyone is still introducing themselves, and hopefully everyone will be with us in just a few moments. All right, Caroline, I think if you want to go on to the next slide, you can go on to that. All right, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us at our first webinar here in this series. So I just wanted to share a little bit about folks that are joining us, a little bit about our organization here that is hosting today. And so we are the Vermont Education and Environment Network. You may be familiar with our former entity, which would have been Vermont Sweep. And so our board of directors, which is kind of shown here and listed here, has been working over the last year to kind of reimagine our mission and how we can best serve educators and environmental professionals here in the state of Vermont. And so we have kind of been doing a little more reimagining during COVID and what that looks like and how we support a professional network. And so our mission really is to bring together and promote kind of a network and a community of individuals and organizations that are working together to promote high quality outdoor environmental and educational experiences. And we are predominantly run by a volunteer board, and we have one staffer, Caroline Blake, who is actually going to moderate our session for us today. So Caroline joined us in February and really has been kind of the backbone of our organization, helping us stay organized and on top of things. She has a master's degree in environmental education from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, and has a full-time job actually as my colleague in our day jobs here at Lake Champlain Sea Grant and University of Vermont Extension, working on watershed education. And so Caroline is gonna moderate the session for us today with our amazing panelists, and Carrie and I will be in the background. Carrie McAllister from Shelburne Farms is one of our board members, and we will be behind the scenes kind of answering questions and dealing with the virtual side of things. So I'll hand it over to Caroline.
All right, well, hi everybody. Welcome to our very first webinar series. Today's title is going to be Education in the Outdoors, Success Stories from the Field. So today we're really going to be we asked our panelists to talk to kind of four main topics. Something along the lines of recent success stories in education outside the traditional classroom, outdoor experiences for students, interactions, collaborations between community partners and classroom teachers, and then last but not least, any examples of how resources were used in practice. So that's what today's topic's going to be on. I'm sure at this point in the world, a lot of you have been on Zoom calls, but maybe this is your first Zoom webinar. So you all currently are muted and we can't see your screen. That way panelists can kind of take the reins and be able to share their information. But we would love for you all to use the chat box to show excitement, to show interest. But just remember, kind of excessive chatting pops up on our screen as panelists and can be a little bit distracting. So make sure that it's relevant, but we're excited to hear your thoughts and things like that. Secondly, we've got this awesome Q&A setting. So that's throughout the presentation. If you have any questions for specific panelists, we'll answer them at the end, and you can put those questions throughout the presentation into that chat box. And then there's this great option with a thumbs up. So if somebody asks a question that you like, you can upvote it, meaning that you put the thumbs up next to it, and that way it bumps to the top of our list saying, hey, this is a pretty popular question. Let's make sure that we answer it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. I'm going to let them turn on their mics and turn on their videos, and I'll do a quick introduction to all of them. We'll see what happens. Emily Caplita was with us for a good portion of our intro earlier on, but has been having some internet connections. So we're going to work with it and keep going. But first, let me introduce Beth Roy. So Beth is the Food and Farm Program Manager at Vital Communities in White River Junction, Vermont. Beth's excitement for place-based education started over 20 years ago while she worked at various nature centers around the New England area, including the Vermont Institute of Natural Science, or VINS, and as the Director of Education at the Nature Museum in Grafton, Vermont. So Beth, thank you for being with us. I'll do a quick introduction for Emily. She's a teacher/naturalist and administrator with Audubon, Vermont in the Huntington area. Ooh, it looks like she might be calling in right as we speak. And then last but not least, Bobby Farlise Rubio, I think I've got that right, has been a science educator at the Fairbanks Museum and Planetarium in St. Johnsbury, Vermont since 2003. There he teaches classes to visiting students as well as the public on a wide variety of subjects ranging from astronomy and natural science to history and culture. So thank you all so much for being here. And so the way this webinar is going to work is we've got 3 questions that we sent the panelists ahead of time to kind of get them thinking. And we'll just kind of give a chance for each of them to answer those questions for 2 to 3 minutes, pass it down the line, and we'll go from there. So first question is going to be, what has your organization been doing that has been successful during remote virtual learning teaching? And maybe just to start it off, Beth, you're the first one on my screen, so maybe we'll throw it to you first.
Thanks, Caroline. Great, so I'm actually sitting here in a couple different capacities. So I work at Vital Communities, and we're in White River Junction. So I manage the Food and Farm Program, and that includes the Upper Valley Farm to School Network, as well as I'm a steering committee member for the Upper Valley Teaching Place Collaborative. And then I can go into that a little bit more detail, but and then I also work with our Valley Quest program here at Vital Community. So I kind of sit with a few different hats and a few different success and maybe not so success stories as well. And so I think, you know, success stories for us, you know, when I start with just farm to school, you know, when the schools were closed down, honestly, within our farm to school role, we really were not focused on education. We immediately focused on school meals, because within farm to school, we work a lot within school meals, working on quality school meals. Well, our number one concern was we just needed to make sure kids were getting school meals. And so we were working with all our local schools to really get them activated and get their delivery mechanisms in place and things like that. So, you know, the education part of it came a little bit after we kind of were able to take a breath to figure out what the heck was even going on. And so that was just how it kind of played out. But, you know, as I took time to pause and also thinking about working within our Valley Quest program, and I should say Valley Quest, if you're not familiar with it, is, gosh, the program is over 20 years old at this point, but it's a series of treasure hunts, and they're all over the Upper Valley. We have over 70 of them, and they're just basically, you know, places, they're, you know, highlighting special places all over the Upper Valley. They can be history based, they can be natural history based. They're usually written in rhyme, so they're really fun. and they're usually developed by school children. So they're a teaching tool. And so we were really trying to highlight with our Valley Quest program that was quite successful, of just like, you know, especially when like the parks and everything was shut down, everyone was really said, you know, you need to stay home, and that's really home. And so we kind of revamped our questing curriculum and looked at that and said, how can we make this so you can make your own, like highlight your own special places in your backyard or on your block. And you can write this for your mom and dad or your neighbor or wherever, and just make it really small, really local, and really fun. So we just kind of did that and played that out for folks. And then within Farm to School, once we were able to take a breath, you know, what I found was, you know, bringing it back to just simplicity. I was tired. My kids were at home homeschooling, and I was like, what do I want to do right now? And it's not next generation science standards, sorry to say. It was starting to be spring, and, you know, so it was thinking about seeds and just slowing down. And, you know, so we did one webinar that was really fun, and we did a seed hunt. And I sent my kids out ahead of time. And this was just a simple tool that I ended up with a basket of various seeds from nature, and then went in my cupboard, emptied out my seeds. So, you know, we found, you know, things like corn and whatever else we could find in the refrigerator that had seeds. And so then we were just chatting with the teachers on the webinar of like, these are just simple things to get kids connected with the outdoors and food all at once. And you can do it over simple, you know, webinar format.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. I know that you, like, for example, on the Vean side of things, or that you had posted a blog for your organization where your family had done their own Valley Quest, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that, you know.
Yeah, the benefits of having two children, they end up being highlighted a lot and experimented on through this whole process. And yeah, so it was really fun. And so we, one day when Dad was at work, we made our own Valley Quest of our own special spots that the kids created, and it was just really fun. So again, I think my lesson really out of this was like, slow it down, go back to basics. What are you as an educator or a parent finding joy in? And put it out there, because that was really where I was excited about, of, you know, tapping back into that wonder, you know, and that's why we were discovering seeds. I mean, seeds are just like these beautiful little packages of hope, you know? So, I mean, that was just what really I wanted to focus on. And so that's where we went. And so I think that was really my lesson at the beginning of the pandemic, of just like, slow down. How are we connecting to each other? How are we connecting to the environment? And I should say the Upper Valley Teaching Place Collaborative is a group of place-based, you know, educators, environmental educators, that anyone is welcome. Please Google it. And it's a huge wealth of resources. So immediately as a group, we just started piling the website with as many different resources we could give folks as well there. And so that's a really great tool, and it continues to be as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for touching on that. I know you were talking from many different hats on that one, and what certain organizations have been doing. So Bobby, you're next in the docket. What has your organization been doing that you find has been successful during this kind of remote virtual teaching side of things? Oh, I think you're still on mute, just as.
Sorry about that. I could echo a lot of what Beth was saying about back to basics and the idea of even focusing on things like seeds. You know, the museum, we have contracts with schools, and we had a certain commitment about the number of classes we were still committed to giving. And we tried to do some of our normal classes with a Zoom with all the kids at home. And you can imagine how fun that can be and how chaotic that can be. But that, you know, there was sort of like going through the motions of what we used to do. But then in addition to that, I realized that we had to do something totally different. And my first idea was to make a video that was about 20 minutes long. And it was right at the end of March, about identifying trees without their leaves, you know, twigs, buds, bark, a very basic kind of video. And I had no idea that that was going to become part of a series when I did it. But since then, I did one every 2 weeks, and basically included more than just trees. Whatever, lichens, mushrooms, amphibians. I went to a vernal pool. I went to a beaver pond. I went to all the places that I try to take kids on our field trips, and I went there without them to show them what was happening. And this video series kind of unexpectedly became like really crucial for a bunch of teachers. They started using it and building lesson plans off of the videos that I made. And because they came out every 2 weeks, there was an opportunity, you know, for them to go out and do the things and look for the things that I talk about. And I did alternate with a live like Q&A session, but that, like a lot of live things, didn't work out so well because it was hard to, you know, get all the people to come to that channel at the same time. But the videos ended up being the most watched things that the museum ever did. And I just to real quick, if you don't mind, Caroline, I was going to share my screen. Is that all right?
Yeah, we can try that out and see how it goes. So
just put up the website. This is the museum created a public virtual learning archive. One thing I was doing was having a weekly conversation with the folks at the local hospital. We thought we should be the resource for COVID-19 as far as understanding how it impacted the Northeast Kingdom. And this was well watched, and it was an attempt to kind of basically calm everyone down and help everybody, you know, keep it cool and understand that the hospital was in good, you know, preparation for this. But the main thing that I'm talking about is further down, these outdoors videos. So every other one is a live Q&A, but the main ones that are April 1st, April 15th, April 29th, you can kind of see just based on the pictures as the seasons were progressing. You know, that's on our website. So anybody can go visit that on the fairbanksmuseum.org website and watch them as much as you'd like. Because of scheduling, I couldn't keep doing those, but those 6 videos are kind of perennial in the sense that they'll be useful for anybody in the spring, seeing what's coming up at that time. And, you know, it kind of guided our thought. This was a thing that we never did. We were never creating a lot of media. And now we're kind of realizing that we're going to have to become a media production company.
I've very much felt that, not only, you know, as an administrative coordinator on this side of things, but even for, like, you know, Ashley mentioned my day job is right now I've been fully a cinematographer and an editor, and I've turned into a voice moderator too, not planned as a part of this either, but I got asked to do that. So yes, the shifting of how can we capture this awesome knowledge base that we all as environmental educators, as we as educators have, and how are we getting that out to people that aren't in our vicinity. So I think Emily, unfortunately, is not here with us. So I'm going to move on to question.
Wait, I'm here.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. All right. So Emily, I'll get the question out loud since I don't think you can see the screen. So what has your organization been doing that's been successful during this remote virtual learning period?
Yeah, so, I mean, as you can see, I currently cannot get onto my own computer. So I think for a lot of people, it was a really large challenge with just like the bandwidth of being able to reach everybody. But when Audubon Vermont and our education team heard, like, the minute that schools, like, they closed schools, we were like, all right, well, what can we do for those families and those teachers? And so we compiled a schedule of every single day. We would post a activity, a lesson, something to engage with the students pre-K to like middle school, high school, that either the teachers could use or the families can use during the period of time that they were at home. And it was a great season to be able to do that. Just like Beth was saying, like being able to look out your window and use the changing of spring and really honing in on those skills that I think people forget about, like having a sit spot every single day and watching the tree outside grow its leaves and then grow its flowers and then see all the insects come to it. So that was one really huge thing that we did throughout the whole entire school year. Every single day we posted that on our website. We had like a whole section called Audubon from Home that's still up there too. And we also like posted things on Instagram and our Facebook as well. And then one thing that we were hearing from our play school parents was that they missed the routine. And so myself and my other co-teacher, our AmeriCorps member, we on Fridays still met with our play school students over Zoom and had a snack and story time during the period of time where we would have had snack with them. So we read a story, we talked to them, we caught up on our weeks, and then we also supplied them with a lesson and an activity. So we did a lesson, whether it's about butterflies or mice, and then they had a craft to do at home that we supplied them with as well, which was wonderful. And then we, during the summer period of time, we traditionally had summer camps, and this year we decided to not have in-person summer camps, but we provided 4 weeks of an online camp in a kit where we provided all of the materials for camp. And then during the week, you would meet for 1 hour with one of our teacher naturalists and go through the lesson and the activity. So we had a week about birds, we had a week on aquatics, and 2 other weeks, just to be able to connect with those kids again. And what was incredible about that was we were even able to reach people from different states who needed that care and that attention. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, you know, I wish that I had been a part of all your guys' organizations too, but I think we were fluttering behind the scenes as well. So I think after those great answers, let's move on to question number 2. So kind of looking forward, what can your organization offer to support K through 12 teachers in Olives? I know kind of in some of your previous responses, you might have already touched on this, so feel free to just highlight. But how about Bobby, do you want to start this one off?
Sure, thanks. Well, because of how things have changed, we're not expecting folks to want the same classes. We've picked like the top 10 or 12 of our most popular and standards-based classes, and we have a sort of a la carte menu where you can either have a lesson with one of us, lecturing to the classroom live, or more of like a consultation with the teacher. So the teacher can talk to one of us for an hour, get an idea of what to do, and then we can check in with them after they've done an activity. So we have different ways of doing it, including materials kits that we'll prepare for each class that the teacher can pick up. Most of the schools that we work with are very close, and coming to St. Jay is sort of central for most of them. So we figured instead of delivering them, we would have them pick them up here, take the box of materials to their class, use it for that week, have the live consultation with me, with the teacher, or me and the kids, depending on how the teacher chooses. And we're kind of coming up with this package deal. Usually we have teachers that subscribe, the school has subscribed for a certain number of classes per year. And so we want to give them the opportunity to get those classes, but working in this new environment and trying to stay away from those everybody at their own home on Zoom logging in, because that just really is hard to make that work. But if all the kids are in a classroom, which we'll see how long that can last, but if that happens, then at least the teacher present with the kids is a very different environment, and it's going to be much more productive if they're in the room with their teacher than if they're at home with the cat walking across the screen and all that. So that's kind of the model doing. And just to add to that, we have another thing with our STEM lab, this new lab that we started last year behind me. That's a lot more difficult, but we're working with the New Hampshire Academy of Sciences to get equipment that we can loan out, like high-end, like professional grade microscopes, spectrometers, things like that, PCR machines for the stuff that we would teach the kids in here. So that's a little bit different because that's a sort of a special selected group of kids that are, really advanced in their scientific knowledge. And that might not be helpful for most of the schools that we work with. But the stuff that we've done in the lab is always being spread out to schools. So there's no reason why a teacher couldn't ask for those kinds of materials too.
Wonderful. Awesome. All right, maybe let's pass the floor over to Emily. Emily, what can Audubon Vermont be offering K through 12 teachers at the current moment?
Yeah, so we are so used to seeing so many kids come to our center, and because it's such a magical place. And during this time, we've really thought hard about what we could still offer these teachers, and even trying to think of like, what do they even need? That's been a huge question that we've been asking ourselves, like how truly can we help them? But along with all the resources that are on our website and are available and free for the public to use for any teacher, any family, we are open to helping out teachers and families in any way that we can within means. We are open to, we have a lot of videos as well. Caroline, I too have become a little bit of a videographer during this period of time. And so we have loads of videos and also loads of lessons that we can then put as a video to then send to those teachers to give them some guidance. And we are able to give our lesson plans or give any craft or activity to teachers as well. We want to be able to give an Audubon experience to the students still any way that we possibly can.
Great. All right, and last but not least, Beth. So I know that you've got a couple different hats on, so feel free to answer it however you'd like, but kind of how has your organization been able to help support K-12 teachers?
Sure. So I think within the Upper Valley Teaching Place Collaborative, you know, it's a network of people doing place-based education, environmental-based education. And so it is just a great place to, you know, become a member of and, you know, go to Facebook on, just to feel connected with other people doing the good work. So I think that's really important right now, is feeling connected to that community. And on their website, they have just so many different resources. Like, it's just a great place to go. They've already all been vetted and everything like that. There's also a nice spotlight, there's an educator spotlight there. That's just a beautiful article that's done for the newsletter every month. Spotlighting just an educator that's doing something marvelous dealing with place-based education. So I would say, you know, if you're looking for inspiration or other people to connect to, go there. You know, like, it's a great place to start. You know, within Valley Quest, you know, we are more than happy to chat one-on-one with teachers anytime. We can video in, how do we do a quest? What does it look like? All those resources are also on Vital Communities' website. So we have 3 different curriculums that are there. You can download them. All those resources are free. But we all also are just a phone call away and happy to help you, you know, walk through the process of creating a quest with your student. And then I think within Farm to School, we actually have a great opportunity that's actually just finishing being developed right now this month, is within the Vermont Farm to School network, a whole partnership kind of was created across the state with Vital Communities, Shelburne Farms, Vermont Seed, Food Connects, Healthy Roots. All these groups are basically expanding the entire state to develop these professional development modules around Farm to School. And so these modules, there's 5 of them. There's one on just the nuts and bolts of Farm to School. What is it? What does it look like? There's another one that's on School Food 101. School food is really complex, and so we can kind of go in and dissect that a little bit. We also have another one on student engagement and youth voice in Farm to School and how to use that. And then a 4th one is integrating food justice within your curriculum, and then using trauma-informed practices in Farm to School. And so these I'm really excited about, because literally they can be delivered, it's a contract through the Agency of Education. So right now they can be delivered, I shouldn't say right now, at the end of the month, hopefully by the end of September, they will be fully developed and be able to be delivered to educators across the state of Vermont for free. So that's really great. So if there's any administrators out there that might be interested in that, you can sign up. We can come in and do just 1, we can do 5, and we're developing all of them so they can either be delivered as a webinar or in person. Of course, we'd love to do more in person, because then we can also do some great cooking and things together as well. So these will be offered all the way through to the end of the school year for free for folks as well. So that's a really great opportunity. But then within our service area of the Upper Valley of Vermont and New Hampshire, I'm happy again. You know, I love getting calls from educators of just like, hey, let's talk through a situation. You know, we have the garden. I've never really used it much. How can we connect this to the curriculum more? How do I even get the kids out in the garden? You know, I'm just happy to talk through with any educator around those things. I'm happy to go to schools at this point. I know most schools have kind of moratorium on visitors, but again, if it can be outside in your outdoor classroom, more than happy to help with any sort of, you know, ag education, food education, and things like that. I'll also say the Vermont Harvest of the Month is a fantastic resource. And so on that website is so many different curriculum components you can pull from. And it's really nice. It's 1 vegetable a month. So it's not like you have to focus on a whole bunch of things. So it's really nice. You can just dive into one veggie and maybe do one taste test with your student, something like that. So I'm there to help.
They're not all squashed by the amount of squash that every single person ends up in the garden.
We actually purposely tried not to have a zucchini month because of that. So. But check it. Those are fantastic resources if you're just thinking to try to do some little food education piece. And I know for us, we've really been having a hard time trying to figure out how can we do some cooking and eating together in these current times. And so we understand that there are some huge limitations there. But there's also some really great opportunities, especially when it's talking about right now, going back to school at the peak of gardening happening, that there's so much opportunity happening. And I think there's still some tasting that can happen as you're maybe collecting those zucchinis in the school garden and things. So
for sure,
you can figure that out.
All right, panelists, so we've got one more question left, just kind of doing a time check. It's a little bit after 4:30, so our plan is to kind of wrap this up by 4:45, including kind of a poll at the end and doing a plug for our next webinar. So for this next question, maybe try and do 2-ish minutes, but feel free to play off of one another. So the last question is, what has been a new addition to your teaching toolkit that you would recommend to other educators? And so I think let's start off with Emily. I think you're the first person that hasn't answered the question first. So anything that you've been able to add to your teaching toolkit?
Great, yeah. I quickly mentioned this in the previous question, but for me, at least, it's been videoing. I never really thought about how many short videos I watch even as an adult on YouTube or on Facebook that pop up. And this all really started because the shutdown happened right when we were supposed to be having our Sugar on Snow event back in March. And so we were all thinking, how do we still connect with the community and still teach them about maple syrup and maple sugaring and the whole process? And we came up with an idea of these short videos that go through the entire process. And I kind of expanded that to videos about everything, whether it's about how to ID a bird, the different parts of a beaver, birding in your backyard. And those are just great ways that, you could just sit down for a minute and watch it and learn just one new piece of information, but are also funny and nice, and they're all at Audubon too. So it's a way for you and your kids to see oh, that's Beaver Pond. So that's been a huge addition to my teaching toolkit, is the skills that I have developed with videoing.
Yeah, and I can talk on that one for 10 seconds. It's way simpler than you think it is, because again, it was not a skill set that I had before all of this, but with the technology of an iPhone these days, or just home videography things that plugging it in your computer, there's free programs out there. If you have a Mac, iMovie is what I find to be one of the simplest things, but I agree, Emily, that's definitely my teaching toolkit as well. And it was easier than I thought it was. Not easy, but easier than I thought it was.
Agreed.
Let's pass the floor off to Beth, and we'll end it all with Bobby after that.
Sure. I'd say no new tools. It was more of a recognition of my old tools. I tend to be a lot more administration, a lot more pulled away from the day-to-day school programming. So it was coming back to when, maybe I was first doing some more environmental ed in the field back in a while ago, let's just say. And it was really remembering those simple, the wonder, it's where are students, where are learners, where are parents finding wonder right now, and really focusing on that in my own wonder. And then conversations, honestly, I feel like right now I'm much more apt just to want to have a video chat with somebody, a phone call, and just slow down and have those conversations of how are we connecting to our environment? How are we feeling, connected to our place? Because we're kind of stuck in it, right now, and it's really important. So really no new tools, just kind of trying to reflect back on what brought me into this field and celebrating that with other people that are just doing such great work.
Awesome. I love that. All right, last but not least, Bobby, what have you added to your teaching tool belt?
Well, a lot of what Beth is saying sounds like what I felt too, is that returning to the wonder is basically everything in these videos. It's, a lot of times when I go out in the field, I used to, when I first started this job, I would have a long list of things that had to happen in the field program. Like, we got to do the pH of the water, we got to check the temperature over here, we got to do this. And then I started to realize that that was making anxiety a part of the experience, because of knowing that we had a limited time, we had to do all these things. And then my biggest revelation, this isn't so new, but the video series kind of added to this, is that the best thing to do is to get the kids outside and let them find anything, and just to enjoy the experience of exploring and being curious. Like, if they can have a positive experience where they found something that they didn't expect to find, and they learned something they didn't expect to know, then that's a success story for me. And not having an agenda that I think they have to follow, but letting their own curiosity lead them. Because whenever I do that, it makes the environment more fun, and it also makes it more memorable, because everybody has one thing that they tied to. And then I can't plan what they're going to see. So it's exciting for me as a teacher, because a million things are going to happen that we never saw. So I think that, in addition, I could talk about procedures that I've learned in the lab and all that, but that's not really helpful right now. But what I think is the most helpful is to never forget how much kids are already curious. And as opposed, we don't have to impose that on them. We have to kind of unlock that and let that run free, and let them realize that they're already scientists, they're already naturalists, they're already explorers. And I feel like, I wish I had known that when I first started teaching this job a long time ago.
For sure. Well, I greatly appreciate all three of you have added remarkable pieces of insight, and I love how it's interconnected as well, of being able to go from question to question and kind of see what other organizations are doing, but also sharing common things. So that's kind of the last of the guided questions. This is a chance for this last couple of minutes to pose to all of you sitting here watching this. Do you have any questions for an individual panelist or things like that? So feel free to use the Q&A box. Ashley and Carrie are going to help me behind the scenes. To be honest, Ashley and Carrie, I can't see the Q&A box right now, so I might have you all take the lead on kind of picking the thumbs up, and I'm getting the thumbs up from Ashley. So take it away.
Do you mind if I mention one more thing while we're waiting for a question?
Sure.
I just wanted to mention something that we're trying at the museum, and this might be of interest to all the educators out there, is that we're trying to, we're expecting very low attendance from the public after Labor Day. That's usually what happens, but especially so this year. So what we're gonna do is have the museum closed to the public from Monday through Friday, and schools can reserve a day of the week where it's just their school, they get the museum. So that helps them feel safe, because they'll know everybody that's in there, and their contact tracing, whatever protocols they follow, will be there. And we're also doing one day of the week for homeschoolers. The museum, we've been witness to the growth of homeschooling over the years. I've been here 17 years, and it used to be like 5 families, and now it's like 30 that come on a monthly basis. And so I think, because so many school kids are being homeschooled or considered transitioning into homeschooling, I think that's something that might be helpful for folks out there. We're trying to work with that too.
Really appreciate it. And our goal as the VEAN board is to take information and resources that Beth and Bobby and Emily have shared and make sure that it's recorded in this, and that we can put it up on the website. And hopefully also we've got a little app that they were filling in information to be able to take that information and be able to share it with you. Because I know sometimes you're really excited in the moment, hear all these things, and then you're trying to take it in, but it goes in one ear and out the other. So, all right, Ashley and Carrie, I'm gonna see maybe, what do you think, 2 to 3? I'm gonna let you guys decide on how you want to.
Yeah, we got it. We've got a question, laughing at myself here. Throw things in the hat box, also known as the chat box / Q&A box. So we have a question actually from our colleague, Nate Shrakti, and he is asking specifically, Beth, you spoke about refocusing on wonder and connection due to COVID. Do you think this refocusing And simplifying of EE will be a positive impact of COVID that sticks around. And then there's a couple more components of this question. How can we hold on to this energy moving forward? And then Nate is throwing it to our other panelists if anyone else has any thoughts on this.
That's a great question, Nate. And I honestly do think it will continue moving forward, only because part of it is like right now, best practices are like be outside. So I think, it'll continue. And I think if educators can start seeing as we're opening, I mean, we're so fortunate in Vermont that we actually are having some time in school, that if teachers can witness their students' activities outside and how their behavior changes, I think it will be reinforced. Like it'll be a self-reinforcing wheel, and that's what I'm hoping. And I'm hoping too that within the families and communities, that'll be the same way. I mean, I have this great anecdote. I have a daughter who's 9, and going through the pandemic and lots of stress, and spring was coming, and I finally just said to her, she was just freaking out about something. I said, you need to go outside. You need to go for a bike ride. You need to do something. And she was still upset. And I said, okay, we're just going to go for a walk. And the two of us went for just a walk, no agenda, just kind of went down our woods road. And after, as a 9-year-old, she said, wow, I don't feel upset anymore. And was able to like pinpoint it very much of like, yeah, I just need to remember to do this more. So if a 9-year-old can figure this out that was in the middle of a freak out, my guess is us adults hopefully can figure that out and hold on to it too. And she still, it was really funny, just last week she was arguing with her brother and she's like, I'm going for a bike ride, and just like left and was like, okay, we'll be right back, right? Like, and so she's putting that in her own toolbox. And I think as us as adults, if we can hold on to that, I think it'll continue as well. So I have faith that if my 9-year-old can figure it out, we can as educators too.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great. Bobby and Emily, is there anything you want to add to that?
Oh, I mean, I've been an advocate for getting kids outside forever. I mean, that's so now the virus is helping me in that respect, get everybody to go along with that. So I could say everything that Beth is saying about my experiences. And, my best moments in my job are when I get a group of kids out to this beaver pond where we go. And a lot of them are kind of squeamish. They're like, what? I'm supposed to walk over there? There's water over there. I'm going to get muddy. And those are the kids that hopefully by the time it's over, they're dripping head to toe with mud, and they're like holding newts in their hands and saying, I had the best time of my life. And I feel like that, even if they forget the name of the newt and forget the name of the sedges that I showed them, I don't care. Like they just learned that is the place to go and have fun, and that it's a lifelong skill that I think is the most important thing I can teach any of my students beside any specific thing. So I think I was noticing a question about being COVID compliant in outdoor programs. That is the hugest question mark that we're trying to deal with now. We're trying to see if homeschool families would want to go to a place where there's a group of people, because they're used to having small groups. Why would they sign up to go to some place where there's going to be 30 kids? I don't know if there's going to be a buy-in, but we're trying to turn our butterfly house into an outdoor classroom or a greenhouse with serious ventilation, so we can extend the outdoor classroom and learning season into the cold months. And we have a lot of really generous folks who have let us use their land for education, with like a beaver pond, a forest, and we have our town forest. So we're still trying to get folks to do that, but I don't know if the guided experience with a group of people is going to sell. I mean, to hate to use that word, but if anybody's going to want to sign up for that. And that's one of the things that video allows you to do, is to give you the instruction and let everybody be individualized. So it's really we're going to find out when schools start if our model will be seen as safe, but we're doing everything possible to have everything outdoors for that reason.
The other thing I've heard though that's tough is that, is transportation, because no one, they're not allowing field trips because of the fact of having kids all on a bus. And right. So it's kind of a wait and see situation around there. I'm finding a lot more hope on naturalists and educators, coming in, going to schools and working within their outdoor classrooms. That's where I can see. But I know my partner works at VINS, and in Quechee, and they've been working really hard, throughout the season. They've been open, and their outdoor areas all open, but their indoor areas are not, and they've run camps all summer there, and have been COVID compliant with everything they're doing there. And so it was, but it's a, I don't want to say it's a daily hassle, but it's a daily hassle of making sure every T is crossed in that process. But they're not holding their breath of, school groups coming. They're focusing more on homeschooling families and families that are doing the remote option that may feel more comfortable visiting and wanting some instruction in that manner.
Yeah, that is great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think we'll all be learning a lot more about what that's going to look like in the coming weeks. So we do want to acknowledge that it is 4:46. We are just almost right out of time, but we have 2 more quick pieces. I'm going to launch a feedback poll for the session today. So, please give us some feedback. You should be seeing a pop-up. Feel free to click through that. If you have feedback that is kind of like more specific that you want to provide, I am changing the permissions on the chat box so that you all can just chat only we can see it as the panelists. So if you have other feedback you want to put in there, we would love to hear what you think. And while you are voting on that, I think Carrie is going to just talk about one last piece that we have coming up, and then we'll tell you about our next session.
Great, thanks. So you heard our panelists saying how willing they are to understand the needs of classroom teachers and respond to them. So we've actually put together a statewide survey for Vermont educators, both formal classroom teachers and informal educators as well. And we're hoping that the Vermont Education and Environment Network can do some matchmaking between what teachers may need and what community partners and nonprofits, educators are able to provide. So if you can click through on that link in the chat box and you can participate in that survey, we'd encourage everybody to do so. And in addition to addressing as many of those needs that come up as possible through our network, we're also planning to compile the data and post it on our website, because we understand that could be beneficial to lots of organizations to share out what we learn. So we'd love to get lots of participation. You're welcome to share that link with others, and we're trying to get it out through email and on our website as well. So we look forward to learning what you all need and hopefully responding in a positive way so that we can benefit all of our learners and communities during these weird times.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Carrie, what would be super beneficial is if you all wanted to just even click on the link right now, it should at least pop up as a sidebar for you all. That way, when you close out of Zoom in the next couple of minutes, you don't lose that survey link as well. I think it's going to be a great resource, and we're really hoping that it is going to go up on our website. We're going to do some data analysis on it in order to see that matchmaking process. All right. Well, before we even get to the up next, I do want to give our panelists a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it is later and after work hours, or at the tail end of a day and almost the tail end of a week. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. But we also do want to kind of move forward with this as well, saying that we really want to start this webinar series and make it more well known. So feel free to share it. And so we have one planned. We made sure ahead of time to kind of get a date on the calendar, and it's called Taking Teaching Outdoors. I think all 3 of our panelists just touched on this, of a huge request has been coming, at least in my direction. I know coworkers' directions of friends and family saying, what can I do? How can I make this happen? You know, whatever it may be. And so we're recruiting some guest speakers right now that are literally in the field of saying, how can we help out classroom teachers in particular? So we're going to post it on our website. So Ashley and Carrie are going to put some links in there. And then just letting you all know, our plan is to also take all of these recorded webinars and put it up on our website as well. So we hope that as many people join us, if not more, on September 15th. Feel free to share that. And honestly, please reach out to us as well. I'm in charge of the email for this organization. So if you have ideas for webinars or guest speakers that you think would be great, we're all open ears. Again, we're new to this too when it comes to hosting webinars from this specific organization and trying to help our community members as part of our mission. So Carrie and Ashley, is there anything else that we want to touch base with at the very, very end? All right. Well, thanks so much again, everybody. Enjoy your Thursday. It's nice and sun shining out, so hopefully you get to go for a walk and enjoy that outdoors just like we all keep talking about.